I arrived at my last stop before my final destination the following day. It was late, and I was extremely exhausted from a long few days of driving. I grabbed my small backpack and went inside my Airbnb for the night. It was just some random house off the main road that happened to be on my route. I didn't look too much into it. It was only for one night, and all I really needed was a bed to sleep in for a few hours. As soon as I walked in, I caught a whiff of a really unpleasant smell. It wasn't exactly alarming, but definitely not pleasant. Maybe a dead rodent under the house, or mold in the ceiling. I did a quick walkthrough, glancing into the bedroom and the bathroom. I noticed that the smell was much stronger in the bedroom, so I decided to keep my stuff in the main living area and set myself up on the couch for the night. I took a throw blanket off of one of the chairs and laid it out. As I was doing that, a loud thump rang through the walls. I wasn't scared, just confused. It was too loud to be the house settling or anything like that. But the way the sound echoed, it made it hard to tell exactly where it came from. I walked down the hallway and peeked into each room, checking for anything unusual. Everything looked fine. I wasn't sure what I was looking for, really. As far as I could tell, there was nothing to worry about. So I went back to the couch and kept setting up. Once I laid down, I pulled out my phone to do a little planning for the next few days. Then, just a few minutes later, another thump. Almost identical to the first, just one loud echoing bang. I got up again and checked the rooms more thoroughly. I flicked on the lights, looked at the walls and the ceiling. Nothing. No signs of anything off. I started thinking maybe a large branch was swinging in the wind and hitting the roof, but even that felt like a stretch. Still, I reminded myself that I was only staying for one night. Whatever it wasn't my problem. I shut all the lights off and made my way back to the couch and eventually fell asleep. The night stayed quiet after that. I was so tired that I didn't have any trouble sleeping. But the way I woke up, that was unusual. My eyes were still closed. I'd only just started waking up, but something felt wrong. I had a sick, heavy feeling in my gut. When I finally opened my eyes, there was a man standing directly above me, staring straight into my eyes. I felt my whole body freeze. It only lasted a second, maybe less, before he suddenly sprinted from the side of the couch and bolted out the front door. I jumped up and ran after him, but by the time I reached the doorway, he had already disappeared into the trees. I slammed the door shut, my heart pounding, and I turned to grab my phone, but stopped. At the end of the hall, something caught my eye. A folding ladder was hanging down from the ceiling, leading up into the attic. I didn't waste another second. I called for help immediately. As you might have guessed it, the man had been living in the attic. There wasn't much up there to show he'd been there long, maybe just a day or two. It's likely that he was using the Airbnb as a place to sleep, but whatever he was doing, the way he watched me, the way he stood over me while I slept, that's what still keeps me up, because if I hadn't woke up, I might not have ever again. It was the summer of 2018. It was my brother's bachelor party. He invites me and 5 of his friends to this remote rural cabin in the deep forest of Wyoming. I wish I remember what the place was called, but I can't. We rent the cabin for a week, not a soul for miles. It was a nice place with a small river, a short walking distance away. The first 3 days, we hike, play football, and have a barbecue. The last 2 days, we spent it on a binge, drinking heavily, calling our exes, and speaking on our past experiences with the friends. One by one, we start to pass out in various places around the cabin. 2 of my brother's friends ended up in the living room on the couch. Others made it to their rooms. Luckily, I made it to my room on the 2nd floor of the cabin. I'm not sure what time it was, but I woke up sometime in the early morning. It was still dark. I suddenly jolt awake with this incredible urge to throw up. I rushed to the bathroom and vomit everything. Feeling much better after getting everything out, I was up and shuffled back to my room when, suddenly, something catches my eye. A man, around my age, 24 to 26, white, with a simple t-shirt and shorts, no shoes from what I could faintly remember. He was carrying a flashlight and was emitting a red light. He was standing in the living room, shining it on my brother's friends who were sleeping on the couch. The red glow of his flashlight faintly illuminated him, enough to tell that it wasn't my brother or any of his friends. Mind you, we are all Latinos, and if there was a white guy in our group, we would know. Rubbing my eyes to get a better view and trying to wrap my head around what I just saw, leaning over the balcony to try to see what he was doing, but all I saw was nothing, complete darkness and silence. I stayed on that balcony for a good 15 seconds trying to get a better view. The switch for the lights was at the bottom of the stairs, so I quietly crept back to my room to find my phone, only to realize I didn't bring it to my room. I sat there in silence for longer than I can remember. I know it probably wasn't the best thing to do, but I froze and I had no idea what I should do in the situation. So I sat there trying to see if I could hear anything. I did not hear a single noise. No footsteps, no doors, no windows opening, nothing. I didn't go back to sleep after that. When the sun finally came up, I go out and see that everything is the same as we left it. No break-ins, no damage to the windows or doors, just nothing. I told my brother what I saw, and he said that it was just a bad dream. My brother's friends insisted that they would have heard the guy and woken up immediately if some random person was shining a red flashlight on them. I never saw the dude's face, and to this day, I still don't know how he would have gotten to the cabin in just a t-shirt and shorts, and what he was doing so far out in the middle of nowhere with just a red flashlight, or how he got in and out of the cabin without making a noise. It's been years since it happened, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around it, trying to explain it somehow. Maybe it was the Airbnb host, but again, it doesn't explain why they didn't say anything, why the red flashlight. The unfortunate reality is that I'll never know who it was or what they wanted. My daughter and I just came home from our trip to Virginia, where we had booked an Airbnb for 6 nights. We left after the third. Our host had the typical Southern hospitality personality, but something was off that first night. The door code used was a string of 7 numbers that she had memorized, but was nearly impossible for me to remember. I ended up locking ourselves out upon arrival and unloading. We had to go over to the host's house to request the code again. She welcomed us into our home and then began asking questions. However, she let it be known that the questions were directed at my daughter, who was 8, and that I should remain silent. That set off alarm bells. Also upon arrival, the host mentioned that we should close the curtains to the house, even though it's a safe place, because we are 2 girls. Mind you, there are no other homes around, and it was a huge private property. We walked back over to where we were staying and re-entered the premises. That first night, I kept hearing what sounded like a large bug with a hard shell continuously flying into the mini-split in the bedroom. However, after 18 hours of travel, I was too tired to care. The second night, that was a different story. The bathroom attached to the room on the 2nd floor kept having a metallic tinkering noise while we were in bed. My daughter thankfully slept through it. However, I kept experiencing anxiety and I felt very unsettled. I tried to convince myself that I was just tired and still anxious about traveling, but I couldn't help myself. During the 2 days, we came and left. A fan I left on was turned off every time we arrived back. There was a small extendable mirror, the only mirror, in the bathroom that could also tilt up and down. The mirror kept being tilted down towards a child's level. I assumed it was my daughter until I tilted it back up the final day there. I went downstairs to where my daughter was coloring, only to come back upstairs and find it tilted again. Finally, the 3rd night was the last straw. After feeling for those prior days that we were constantly being watched, my daughter went to take a shower and said to me, "I am closing the bathroom door so the lightning bugs can't watch me." My daughter is very extroverted and attached to me. She never wants to be in the bathroom with the door closed when showering. This let me know that she too felt something, but didn't have the words to explain it. We finally went to bed and she fell asleep fast. However, I once again couldn't sleep because of anxiety, and I began to experience panic attacks, which I am not prone to. Then, the same noises from the prior 2 nights began again, only this time much worse. The metallic tinkering noise in the bathroom grew louder and faster. I tried to tell myself it was a mouse. However, I have slept in cabins with mice, and they leave droppings, make squeaks, and you can hear them scurry, but none of that happened. Then, I heard what sounded like someone tinkering with items left on the bathroom counter. It sounded like they dropped a glass. Next, I heard the closet door across from my bed open, but our suitcases were in the way, and I heard the door hit them. These noises went on for hours. Everything inside me told me to run, to protect my daughter, and to get out as soon as possible. The next morning, I went into the bathroom, and there were a child's muddy footprints coming out of the shower and onto the white towel I laid in front of the shower. It was not there the night before. I tried to explain it away, but I couldn't. My daughter had not played in any mud any of those days, and even if she had, there would have been muddy footprints from the front door where we took our shoes off. I immediately began packing our bags, never to return again. After 2 nights of not returning, the host messaged me and offered me an additional night for free, on her. Obviously, I declined. Do I mention anything to the host? Do I leave a review? It took me several days to shake the feeling of this experience. It was so scary that I may never stay in an Airbnb again.